The following painting products were received free of charge for the purpose of review. However, I've not been paid to make this video and all opinions remain my own. Recently, Humbrol reworked their acrylic range of paints, calling it Gen 2. In a previous video, I tried out these paints by hand painting them onto some plastic parts, but for this video, it's time to give them an airbrush test. I'm Matt, this is Model Minutes, and join me as I try out these new paints through an airbrush. So to conduct this test, I'm going to be using my Harder & Steenbeck Evolution airbrush. This is an airbrush that I've had for about a year and a half now, and I found it to be a very high quality product. It does come with a few different bits and pieces, such as a smaller hopper for the paint, which is what I'll use in this test because I don't need too much paint, but it does come with a 0.2 and a 0.4 needle and nozzle set. For this test, I'm going to be using the 0.4 needle and nozzle, just to see how we get on. I also need something to paint on. Some of these plastic parts are simply out of my spares box, but I'd like to thank Plastic Alchemist for donating this Airfix Skyhawk sprue set, and also Sully Scales Models for donating the BF109 extra parts that he had lying around so I could conduct this test. I'll link those channels in the description below, so make sure you check them out. As a side note, all of these plastic parts have already received a spray coat primer base. All of the paints that I'm going to use are shaken for the 45 seconds that were recommended by Humbrol, and then thinned down at a mixture of about 2 drops of thinner to 3 drops of paint, so a ratio of 2 to 3 there. This was then mixed up inside of the hopper on the top of the airbrush, and then we were ready to get airbrushing. I set the pressure on my compressor to about 20 psi and then started applying the different paints to the modelled parts. For every single paint that I'm going to test, I'll do a large generic area of the model with the paint, and then I'll try a little bit of fine control to see what it looks like. Bearing in mind this is only a 0.4 model, the fine control isn't going to be amazing, but the general application should be okay. So I just repeated this process for every single colour that I had available from the Humbrol Gen 2 range, and made sure to label them with a pen as I went so I didn't forget which one was which. I did make sure to purge my airbrush between colours though, so that it was clean for each new one, and then when all of that was done, it was time to sum up my feelings and thoughts on these new paints and how they went through the airbrush. So it's time now to hand over to me at the workbench. There we go, so there we have it. My test of the Humbrol Gen 2 acrylics is now complete. I've done the hand painting and I've done airbrushing. So, my thoughts. I feel like these Gen 2 paints are better than the previous versions of the paints. However, as discussed during the hand painting episode, there are some inconsistencies. So the paints that I'm particularly impressed with are the greys. So 165, that's come out all right, and 164 is pretty good as well. 78, so there's sort of a pattern, 78 here and the black there, they came out pretty well. But it tends to be the lighter colours are not so good. So on here, for example, 116, that's the dark green, that's pretty good. 90 is your Sky Type S, that's not amazing. 29, yeah, that's pretty good. That's got a nice even coverage. 78, I'd use that, that's not too bad. And then the khaki would need a couple of coats because the opacity wasn't amazing. Down the bottom here, you can see I tried to just do a bit of fine control, and some of them are better than others. So moving on to this sprue then, we've got the greys again. So I tried the greys and I hope to be able to show the detail on that. So they do let the detail come through. There wasn't that much in the way of pigments coming through, it wasn't too grainy, so that was quite good. The white was actually surprising. I didn't have high hopes for the white, but it's actually come out pretty good. And the duck egg blue here, that's not too bad as well. So yeah, on the whole, not too bad there. So we come on to the black. The black was pretty good. The black's got good colour coverage on it, fairly controllable. And you can see here I've done the silver and the gunmetal on this one as well, purely to see what it looks like on top of these surfaces. And then if we flick over to this one, you can see that I've done the silver and the gunmetal without them, and it's not as good. So putting the silver and the gunmetal on top of the black is a better option in my opinion. The silver doesn't really look very metallic, and the gunmetal looks almost like a grey rather than a metallic colour as well. So the metallics aren't amazing, but they're okay, they are usable. I did use them on here as well, on these two drop tank bits, and the silver is the top one, and that is okay, and the gunmetal on the bottom, but again it looks more like a grey than it looks like a metallic colour. The brown there, I used it on the pilot, that came out alright, that's not too bad. And I've got the satin here, 129, that's alright. That has come out fairly satin finish, there's a bit of a gloss on it. The Humbrol acrylic thinners does increase the drying time quite considerably, so I've actually sprayed, for example, this grey up here probably about 10-15 minutes ago, and it's still wet, so just be aware of that. On one side it's quite good because it allows you to get it self-leveled, and then it will dry nice and smooth with no blemishes, but in some respects if you want to make quick progress it's going to get in the way of that. Very disappointed about this one, the Azure Blue. I just couldn't get it to come through the airbrush without those little grains in there. It's already started separating again. I only shook this probably about 5 minutes ago, and it's already started to separate. So the consistency of this one's not good. And on the whole, there is a bit of inconsistency. I noticed with some of the other ones, there was some granular stuff going on. I think it was one of these greys, possibly the 165. It had a bit of grain in it. You can see it's separated out there. So if you've had these sitting around for a while, they are going to need a proper mixing. One thing I would like to point out is that because I haven't actually used these in a while, the paint dries in the nib up here, and I actually, when I got the black out, I think the black lid, the nib bit, came out with the lid of the pot, and I had to push it back in. So just be aware of that. My advice would be to store these upright so that nothing dries in the nib. Sometimes I just chuck mine in a box though, so I don't have that luxury. You can see as well, just to do this test, I've used quite a bit of the thinner. That's probably about 2/3 full now, so I've used quite a bit of thinner to get this test done. But the thinners are pretty good. They do as they say on the bottle. But yeah, that's pretty much it. On the whole, not too bad. There are definitely some colours here that I would consider painting with, some not so much, and that is sort of a little bit of a shame because you would like them all to be the same throughout the entire range. You want to be able to get a bottle of paint off the shelf from one manufacturer and know that all of them are going to be the same or to the same quality. But yeah, not too bad on the whole. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of my review and what you think of these paint finishes here. I'd like to give a massive thanks to Solid Scale Models and Plastic Alchemist for donating the sprues that we've used in this video. Check out those guys' channels, and I'll add a link to them down below. As always, quick shout out to my patrons and channel members for the extra support they give the channel. A massive thanks to these guys on screen. And if you'd like to join these people on screen, take a look at the links in the description box. If you're new here and you'd like to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and dropping a like would be massively appreciated. Finally, the last thing to say is a massive thank you to you for watching this one, and I'll see you on the workbench again next time.